Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Women in Retail Talks. I'm Caitlin Sullivan, Associate Content Editor for the Women in Retail Leadership Circle. In today's episode, we're excited to offer a presentation by Callie Schweitzer, Managing Editor of Thrive Global, from our recent Girl Talks event in New York. Listen in as Callie shares her 5 rules for entrepreneurship.
So this is a little bit of my chronology. I've been kind of around the block in the last few years when it comes to media. I went to USC Annenberg for undergrad, fell in love with journalism and the idea of working in newsrooms that felt entrepreneurial and scrappy. And that's something that has always really carried through in my career. Some of the rules that I'll talk about are things that I've learned along the way. I've been at Talking Points Memo, Vox Media, Time Inc., Motto, and now at Thrive Global. So these are the 5 rules of entrepreneurship, according to me. They're lessons I've learned along the way that I hope will be helpful no matter what kind of a company you work for, what industry, and what size. So the first one is take the road less traveled. When I was graduating from college, I was deciding between working at a very large organization, very well respected, and a place called Talking Points Memo, which is a political news site. It was 20 or 25 people, and when I went in and interviewed, they offered me an internship. It happened to be unpaid, 5 days a week, 9 hours a day in New York City, to which I was like, thank you, but I can't do that. Thanks, though. And I sat there and I asked them a bunch of questions about the business side. And they said to me at the end of the interview, we might actually have a job for you. And I said, okay. And they said, well, the CEO, he needs an assistant. He doesn't have one. And he just kind of needs someone. You'd just be doing calendar and things like that. And I said, all right, I'll take it. And I very much took the road less traveled because I believed that there would be a much greater chance to learn, to grow, and to really understand the workings of an operation at a very small company at a very young age. 6 months later, I was promoted to deputy publisher running the business tech and publishing side. It's not because I knew what I was doing when I was 22 years old. I definitely didn't. But it's because I was in a small organization and I had the opportunity to make the most of it and to learn along the way. There were so many things that needed to be done and I was just kind of there and able to learn. And I always say that this was a really important moment for me because I don't know if I had gone to that bigger, much more established news organization if I would be where I am today. And I think that that's a really important career moment to think about oftentimes is where the path and potential for you could potentially be larger. The second one is there's no job too small. I went to a summer program at Northwestern for journalism. It was like journalism boot camp, and it was like totally the most incredible nerdy thing ever. I mean, truly, it was like journalism 9 hours a day. And I was in high school, guys. Like, this is really embarrassing. We should all be laughing and like sympathizing with me. But this guy once gave this quote where he said that you should always do the shit jobs with a smile because eventually somebody will come over and say, why is that little shit always smiling? And I thought this was such a great quote. And I think about that all the time because it's so true. Like, I will tell you, I'm 9 days into my new job at Thrive Global. And the other day, there was some small thing that needed to be done. And I was like, I'll do it. And everyone was sort of like, really? And I was like, yeah, like, I'll take out the trash, like whatever you guys need me to do. And I've always felt that mentality at an organization, no matter whether you are 3 people or 3,000 people, is how you really collaborate and learn to grow and build a team. So that's something that I felt is really important. So when I was at TPM, I guess in talking about my experience at TPM and how I went from assistant to the publisher to deputy publisher, I used to always say, I raised my hand. I just raised my hand. And then one day a woman said to me, that's such a woman thing to say. And I was like, what? Why? And she was like, because nobody asked you to do those things. You weren't raising your hand because no one asked. You found those opportunities and you plugged those holes. And this was such an important frame of mind for me, the idea of changing the frame from, well, yes, I'll do what, I'll do it. It wasn't that at all. It was just that I was looking around the organization being like, well, this kind of needs to be done, and this kind of needs to be done, and this kind of needs to be done. And I think that that's something that's really important to think about, especially as women. There are so many moments in our career where we just end up picking up all of these extraneous things because we see them out in the open, and we're like, well, I guess nobody's doing that, so I should do it. And I think that those are really important, ownable moments. Those are moments in which we should be saying, yes, I can take on this additional responsibility, and yes, I can take this on, and it's better for the business, and we're growing, and our numbers are here and there because I took those on. Not because somebody identified me and said, hey, could you take that on? And I think a lot about this idea of finding opportunities and plugging holes. I mean, no matter what, I bet at every organization you work in, there's way too much work for way too few people. And I think that this is something where instead of seeing that as a negative, it's a true opportunity for our advancement. And I think that that's something that we can often forget, is that we think we have been chosen to do things, but instead oftentimes we've found those opportunities. And I think that that is something that is a moment of creativity to really own. Speaking of ownership, something that I am very obsessed with is the idea of identifying and owning a number. Are you laughing at that clip art? It's bad. I know. I'm sorry. Guys, I told you from the beginning, words are my thing. Clip art is not. I just felt like I wanted to be prepared, But seriously, when I was at Time, I was part of the leadership team that doubled Time's traffic in 9 months. And I will tell you that being able to say that, realizing the power of being able to own a number and being able to say, yeah, our Facebook referrals grew 738%. Our search referrals grew 200%. I realized the importance that no matter where you are in any organization, no matter what level, even if you're not attached to the revenue side, which I wasn't as someone in the editorial side, it was so important. And it became something where on my team, every single member of the team had something that they owned. And whether it was the Line account or whether it was an Instagram following or something along the way, whether it was even just a headline optimization, being able to own and understand the value that you added numerically. There's this incredible TED Talk that I really encourage everyone to watch. It's a woman called Susan Catalano, I think, and it's about the piece of career advice that women never get. And she talks about sort of the 3 pieces of career advice that are absolutely essential. And number 1 is bringing out the best in yourself. We all learn that. Number 2 is bringing out the best in others. We all learn that. But the third one, she says, is something that only men are taught. And that's, what'd you say? Tell people? That's rule number 5. You're skipping ahead. You saw my presentation. No, I'm just kidding, guys. So the third one is business, strategic, and financial acumen, which is completely understanding how and why the business is making the decisions that it's making. And this was something where when I watched that 3 years ago, when I was just starting at Time, it completely changed my understanding of the business. And maybe you guys all already knew that, and I was just the only person who didn't. But completely getting into the mindset of how decisions were being made and realizing that when I went to talk with a CEO or an EVP or someone at a very senior level, I needed to be saying, and this is how I'm contributing to the business. They are caring about the numbers and the revenue and whether that's traffic or whether that's, new subscribers or this or that. I needed to speak in terms that mattered to them. And getting that understanding was absolutely huge for me. Now, number 5, this is probably the worst of the clip art of all. Maybe I should have just put a picture of my face there. But rule number 5, as our fabulous audience member already called out, is remember your best advocate, and that is completely yourself. And I've thought a lot about that in my career, about the fact that the person who knows me best and the person who's going to advocate for me the best is me. And I think that that is something that we all forget. Oftentimes it's really easy to think that other people will take care of you, but it's kind of funny. I always think about the fact that when you start a new job or when you're at some point in your job and you're really worried, you're gonna have to tell your boss, you have a dentist appointment, or could you leave early that day, and what's gonna happen because I'm gonna be on vacation and all these things. And it's one of the things I've really come to realize is your boss really doesn't notice and doesn't care. And I mean that in a good way. they're busy and they're doing other things. But because of that, it's also really important to maintain that constant communication up and make sure that your boss knows what you're doing, and communicating that is just so important. And I've thought a lot about that because I think that oftentimes it can be hard when you're thinking like, well, I don't want to seem braggy, I don't want to seem like too self-promotional, but it's actually something that I think we all need to be doing more of, is constantly talking about it and constantly being on the radar of people, because automatically, I think it was Mary who was talking about don't hire yourself. It's like we're so in our own heads that oftentimes we do need to be reminded of what people around us are doing. And I think that that's really important. So those are my 5 rules of entrepreneurship. I've been at a company that is now 13 people. I was just at a company that was 3,000 people. So I feel like these are things that have really worked for me at companies of all sizes. And I'm so grateful to have been here tonight. Thank you so much for having me.
Listening. For more information on the Women in Retail Leadership Circle, please visit our website at www.wirlc.com and follow us on Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram at WIR Leadership. Until then, we'll see you next time.